People of Reddit. What's a mystery that still hasn't been solved? The Brandon Lawson case. Guy runs out of gas on a highway. Calls his brother to help him get gas. Then makes a 911 call telling them to send the police, recordings available on YouTube. Then disappears. When his brother and the police arrived, his truck was still sitting there. The disappearance of Madeleine McCann. Disappeared in Portugal while on vacation with her family and was missing from her room and gone without a trace when checked on. Still not found to this day. Area 51 Bob Lazar working on the UFO, I think his story is real. This week on BuzzFeed Unsolved. I love Ryan and Shane. Who is the piece of shit that took a bite out of my cousin's dog? The dog had a human-sized mouth chunk missing out of it. Vet said most likely human. But who the fuck does something like that? Bite a chunk out of a dog. And he lives in a nice neighborhood. Matter fact, in any neighborhood this is weird. Epstein. Is there life beyond Earth? The third cicada puzzle. As far as I know. When the toast comes out of the toaster, where did the bread go? What happened to Amelia Earhart? How consciousness works. What happened to Liz Anfroon and Chris Kramers? Who took those creepy photographs? Why did they have wrong password attempts on their phones? This is probably one of the scariest unsolved mysteries I've ever come across. There is a whole subreddit dedicated to that question, /r/unresolved mysteries. What happens to some of the people that disappear in national forests? Yeah, some remains are found here and there, but some are just gone. The Delphi murders. Springfield 3. Springfield MO. June 92. Corrupt high-level LE involved. The Max Headroom incident. I want to know who did this so badly. It has no effect on my life whatsoever, but I need to know. Who killed John Bennett Ramsey? The Voynich manuscript. The person who wrote it was either from a parallel dimension, part of a secret esoteric order that invented its own language, or just stark raving mad. Any explanation would be interesting. Of course, people make up their own languages and draw fantastical things. But the amount of time and dedication put into this thing back when all books were handwritten. It's baffling. Greek fire. It was basically napalm that couldn't be extinguished with water. When I was young, the plumber found a corpse in my father's basement. No, my dad didn't kill anyone. This poor guy had been dead and locked in an iron coffin for over a century, and Dad had only owned the place for a couple years. But the university called in by the police came up short. They were confident that the coffin wasn't sold locally, that it didn't contain anyone that had died in the Civil War, and that it wasn't a close family member of anyone living or working there at the time. They weren't even sure it was a he. And they weren't going to disturb the sealed remains to check. Dark matter and dark energy. If I had the opportunity to go back in time and watch a single event unfold, without being affected by it / not being able to influence it, is the still unsolved Dyatlov Pass incident. In 1959, a group of 8 hikers died under circumstances so strange that it was either the single greatest perfect crime or the work of extraterrestrial beings. Whatever happened, it is still unsolved and will never be solved. That one AITA user who thought her husband and Phil were going to kill her. Genuinely concerned for her. A place in India has an unnatural amount of twins born each year and there is no explanation for it. And another unsolved mystery is that of the Zodiac Killer. Edit, add Jack the Ripper to the unsolved mystery list. Zodiac Killer. I think one of their letters have been decrypted recently. But it didn't bring them any closer to finding them. What happened to Bryce Laspisa? Oak Island, Nova Scotia. Something's buried there and who knows what it is. I've been following this mystery long before the History Channel got a hold of it and ruined it. Jack the Ripper and the Atlas Vampire. Just read about the fact that the Quran mentions a people called Sabians as fellow people of the book, along with Christians and Jews. Yet modern scholars have no idea who or what the Sabians were. Where do the socks go in the dryer? TLDR, I don't know why my dad's parents even got married. And I don't know why they hated each other so much. I will probably never find out. First of all, my grandparents on both sides all divorced before I was born. I knew and had a relationship with all of them. I just never had an intact set of grandparents. My mom's parents have a straightforward story. My grandpa had an affair and they split up a few years before my parents married. My grandpa married the other woman. And by the time grandchildren turned up, things had settled down and mellowed out. My grandma and my step-grandma now get together at family events and drink a lot of wine and bitch about all the obnoxious shit my grandpa does. Everyone's cool. My dad's parents are a different story. They hated each other. Like. A lot. They ended up getting divorced when my dad, their oldest son, was 15 or 16. This was back in the early/mid 1970s. When divorce just wasn't done, TM. Also my grandparents were/are Catholic. And my grandpa was very Catholic. And they both believed that getting a divorce was still totally against the church. They hated each other so much that they were willing to risk social suicide and also serve time in purgatory. Just to be rid of each other. After that, they promptly pretended the other didn't exist. They didn't even shit-talk each other. Which is sort of what you expect when people who hate each other get divorced. I don't know how to explain it. Because it sounds ridiculous even to me. But my grandparents completely expunged one another from their lives and did it so thoroughly that it didn't occur to me until I was like 10 years old that they even knew each other. I'm not exaggerating at all when I say that I never once, ever, saw them in the same room together. I didn't even see them in the same building together. While they both talked about the past. And told stories of my dad and uncles as kids. They never once mentioned the other. No one else so much as mentioned one of them in front of the other. They didn't have family photos of each other. I don't think I saw a single photo of the two of them together, and I'm not even sure such photos exist. Like, everyone in my grandpa's presence pretended my grandma didn't exist. And vice versa. Literally the only evidence that the two of them ever knew each other was that my dad and his two brothers existed. As an adult, I understand this is fucking insane. But as a child it was just a feature of my life and it never occurred to me to question it. I have no idea. Absolutely none at all. Why this happened? I'll probably never find out. My grandfather passed away 15 years ago. And my grandma has been slowly losing a battle with dementia for a decade. And if anyone else knows anything, they're probably taking it to the grave. I have a wild theory that my grandma might be a secret lesbian. But I freely admit this is just wild speculation born out of a complete information vacuum. My grandma was never in another relationship again. My grandpa did get remarried when I was a young child. But it came out that she was just after his money and he divorced her as well. In for a penny, in for a pound. I guess. Already due in purgatory and one more wouldn't make a difference. The third time. He didn't bother getting married. He spent the last 7 or so years of his life living pretty openly and unashamedly unmarried with a woman who was herself A, very Catholic, B, divorced, and C, had at one point taken vows and been a nun. The end. That one story of the pre-med student that went missing right before spring break or something. Can't remember his name, but he was out with a friend at some college bar and was never seen again. There's video of him going into a bar, but he never leaves out the front and he was never seen or heard from again. I think they ruled out his friend as a suspect too. I think it was in Florida. Edit, Brian Schaefer. Weird story in Ohio. https://en.m.wikipedia.org/wiki/disappearance_of_Brian_Schaefer. I've scrolled too far to not see Tamam Shud/Somerton man. Why my cat drags my work shoes into my bed and leaves them next to my head and pillow. He started doing this when he hit 7 years old. Freakin' way to. Carol Baskin's husband. Eastern Flight 980. Makes MH370 look like a Scooby-Doo mystery. Plane crashed under extremely suspicious circumstances and the Paraguayan, Bolivian, and the US governments really didn't want to investigate it. Plus, when private investigators found the wreckage, there were no bodies. https://udo.be/pl20nd was 3K Harris, a great video about it. The disappearance of the Beaumont children and the expected linked case of Joanne Ratcliffe and Keir St. Gordon. Maura Murray case. It's one of the most interesting ones for come across. She disappeared under extremely strange circumstances. Dreams. Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 disappearance. Still bothers me to this day. The Boeing 777 departed from Kuala Lumpur with 239 people on board on March 8, 2014. But 40 minutes into what should have been a 6-hour flight to Beijing, the plane diverted from its scheduled route and flew towards the southern Indian Ocean. The flight then simply disappeared from radars, sparking a multimillion-dollar international search and salvage operation that was eventually called off in 2018 after no leads were found. Scattered pieces of debris that washed ashore on African beaches and Indian Ocean islands indicate MH370 crashed in a distant stretch of the ocean. But a multi-government search by Australia, Malaysia and China failed to pinpoint a location. The mystery of D.B. Cooper. Where is Shelley Miscavige? D.B. Cooper. The disappearance of William Tyrrell. William Tyrrell was a 3-year-old kid from Kendal in New South Wales, Australia. He was playing in the backyard of his foster grandmother's house with his sister when he had all of a sudden disappeared. People have many different theories. For example, he had been accidentally hit by his neighbor's car or that he had ran away. 2 women had claimed that they had heard that William was taken by a pedophile, killed and stuffed in a suitcase and buried. Another man claimed that he saw William getting put in the boot of a car and driven off. It's been just over 6 years and still little to no traces of William have been found. In the 80s, my sister, age 10, Casey, ran away from my dad's house in Portland. They found her stuff at a gas station a couple days later, but she was never seen again. Later, a guy said he killed her but then said he was only lying to get on TV and got alibied. They never found a body or any other suspects. Thanks for watching.